Alison Edwards from OC Human Relations. Alison, thank you so much for agreeing to do this. Is this your first Facebook Live?
Absolutely. First time. Thanks for the
Yay!
invite.
Yeah, you're welcome. No, well, thank you for being in the group and for posting all the things that you've put in there so far. And that's kind of what prompted me to want to reach out and have you talk about OC Human Relations. There's so much that you do in the community, and given everything going on, I think your organization's story and what you're doing post-COVID is very, very, very necessary. So thank you for giving me the time to interview you.
Yeah.
So why don't you start off with why don't you start off with telling everyone about who you are? I know you've been a long time staff member of OC Human Relations, so maybe talk about you and your history with the org, and then what OC Human Relations is all about.
Sure. So, I've worked at OC Human Relations since the late 90s, but I took over as the CEO a little over 2 years ago, coming on 2.5 years ago. And the organization was created almost 30 years ago to really further the work of what started out as the county's Commission on Human Relations. And that commission did a lot of work to respond to events in the community crisis. And started tracking and reporting hate crime for the county. But we wanted to make sure we were also doing work on the preventative side to be proactive, to start addressing human relations issues with young people. And so we created programs to try to create an Orange County where all people feel safe, valued, and included. So for us, that means going, excuse me, going into schools and working with students and teachers, creating safe and respectful campuses where students can thrive, working alongside the courts to find alternative ways to resolve conflict in courtrooms and communities between neighbors. We even train mediators so that they can go out and do that work on their own. And then, of course, community building work, which means bringing people together from neighborhoods to advocate for better living conditions, more voice in the decisions that affect their lives. And then we continue to partner with the county to put out that hate crime report every year, which is usually what I would say the broader community knows us for. So you can tell a little bit from that description that we can't do much when schools and courtrooms are closed. We always say we do, all of our work is based in relationships. So I always joke that, like, as a staff, we can't even get anything done unless we sit in a circle, right? Because we are people who love dialogue.
Yes.
We love connection, and we believe that it's powerful for people to be in community and to have a shared experience. So it's been a big change to not be able to be face to face with the people that we work with, to not deliver services that way. So we've been adjusting to that new life.
I bet. Yeah. So you started talking a little bit about the programming. So pre-COVID, you're in the schools, you're in community, you partner a lot with community organizations. Say more a little bit about the inner workings of OC Human Relations and how you get your programming out there specifically.
Sure. So, for example, when we work with youth, we have staff that are assigned to go out to school campuses to create student leadership groups, and they will decide what issues are most important to address on their campus. That could be safety, it could be bullying, it could be sort of like social barriers and boundaries that need to be broken down. So they will work day in, day out on a handful of school campuses where they are in small groups of students and teachers, giving them leadership skills, educating them about different issues and how they can impact them on campus, running activities. In fact, I just saw that today that one of the schools we work at, they shared online that today would have been their Mix It Up Day, which is like a lunchtime activity where you meet people and eat with people you normally wouldn't. So they do activities like one called Speed Friendships, where you meet a bunch of people within a short period of time. And so they are challenging their peers to reach out to classmates they haven't talked to in a while. But
Oh,
That's a great
nice.
example. They would have been together today. They would have probably had 1 or 200 students in the quad, building connection. So same thing when we go into courtrooms, we have mediators. We're part of a collaborative in the county that helps people resolve conflict out of court. So we take cases off the court docket, we take folks down the hall, we help them find a win-win solution to the conflict that they're in. We do that in family court, small claims court, other courtrooms. We also have some staff that are embedded in middle schools where they actually spend the whole day mentoring and coaching teachers on how to use restorative practices that help them to handle student behavior on the spot in a restorative
Mhm.
way instead of kicking them out or having to have the school suspend them. So again, day in, day out, they are stationed at those campuses working with middle school students and teachers, and trying to do things like interrupt the school to prison pipeline by keeping young people in school and helping them find alternative ways to take responsibility for harm they've created. And those alternative ways are really about building community, about keeping them engaged in their community instead of suspension and expulsion, right? Which are they're actually called exclusionary practices, right? So
Okay.
instead of telling young people, this, you're not worth investing in, we spend a lot of our time like on second and third chances for young people, saying we know that you are worth investing in, we know you have much to offer, and we know that you can do this, and we can weave you back into community, and you can thrive here if we pivot our understanding from a punitive to a restorative approach. So it's very high contact in that way.
Yeah.
It can be like, a long process to bring a student and a teacher back into relationship with one another, and it's not done well, social distance mode.
I bet.
Um,
Yeah, no, I bet it's although there could be other things that we're probably going to go into a little later that spurs different ways of not communicating well, right? Through social media and through other areas. Just so people know the breadth and the depth of what you do in the county. Um, how many schools are you in? Majority of what parts of Orange County are you in? I mean, you're pretty broad, right?
mhm. Yeah, so we serve the whole county. So for us, that means, for mediation services, et cetera, low and no cost, anyone can come to us in the county. We work in about 20 schools. We have youth conferences that attract maybe 30 plus schools. But the mediation collaborative is in all the justice centers in the county. And we partner with all the police departments in the county, for example, to bring together that hate crime data that produces the report every year. So, yeah, we consider kind of all the people of Orange County our service area, if you
Yeah,
will, though we certainly don't interact with all 3 million.
got it, got it. Okay, so thank you for that. General over. You use a lot. You guys do a lot. I remember meeting with you face to face back when we could, and just not. I understood, the mission of OC Human Relations, but understanding how that mission gets um, implemented. It's a lot of work and it's deep. It's really deep, like you said earlier. It's relationships that have to be cultivated and connection between different generations. So there's a lot that you and your team, I know, have to consider when you put out programs. So with that, what has the whole stay at home order done to your programming? What are the program transitions that you and your staff have had to accommodate to with all this?
Yeah, so we closed pretty early, I think. In fact, we've been already closed now for a month, and the thing that happened for us was this need to close down and some of the community needs, like, they kind of came at us at the same time. So prior to closing down, we had already put out one statement regarding COVID-19 and hate activity. So we were already trying to get people to be aware and be reporting when they saw particularly Asian American, Pacific Islander community members targeted. We'd had kind of a series of hate incidents about a month ago that kind of started ramping up. And so we were already thinking about that. So we wanted to quickly make sure that we didn't create a vacuum by closing our office in that area. So we started thinking about what resources can we get out there and how do we deploy those resources. So again, because we are mostly relationship based, the first thing we did was really just let's call all our partners in this arena and make sure they know that even if the office is closed, we are still here. We are still taking reports. We have, the different portals available to do that. We're still responding. Um, and still making sure that folks that need like victim support services, et cetera,
Mhm.
can be connected to that. So, like I said, first thing was direct phone calls with everyone. And then we started putting out more information online and started just trying to partner with different folks. So I did a call with, for example, Harley Ruta's office. He did a teleconference on this topic. And I keep beating the drum of like, please let us know, please report,
Yeah.
make sure that we can document these stories,
Okay.
because when these things don't get reported, it's so easy for people to just think like, oh, that's not really a big deal.
Yeah.
But it's so different when you are a member of that community, even if it doesn't happen, thousands of times, it doesn't have to happen too many times before people start feeling like, should I go to the grocery store? How am I going to be treated? Is it safe for me to go? Do I want to go if I'm going to be yelled at or approached by people?
Right.
I mean, that is, even in this moment, to go out without that fear is a luxury for some of us. So we wanted to make sure we were putting out those statements and putting those out online and just publicizing that this is happening and that we're available. And then we simultaneous to this have a campaign that we're running called No Hate, which is KNOW, No Hate, know it, understand it, change it. And we had planned a day of no hate for the end of this month, where we were thinking the students that we interact with and the different people who have done the no hate training will do projects on school, and we'll post them all on social media. It'll be great. So
Mhm.
we turned that instead into an online campaign, and we made some challenges that different people can participate in. So we're doing the first one right now, which we're calling "Close the Door on Hate," and we made kind of like the challenge is to decorate your door at home, or it could be your window, and to decorate it with like, what's the reason that you stand up against hate, and take pictures of it, put it online. There's the hashtags on it: spread compassion, not COVID, and no hate. And I keep saying, these are ways for people to fight hate from home. Help us fight hate from home. So we made that pivot because we want people to know that um, we're not going to accept hate in Orange County. We're going to stand against it. And for people who are affected by it, we want you to know that you're not alone, that there are people here who support you and want to make sure that you're safe. So that was one sort of important way to pivot and to make sure that we're still sending that message, and that we're still trying to state kind of like, this is the community standard in Orange County that we want to have around this, and we don't want to see this happening to our friends and neighbors. So we made that switch, and then we also started to put out signs that people could download and put in their window, like facing the street at home, that just say, "We stand against hate," and encouraging people to report, but also to stand in solidarity with different communities. So again, simple ways. So many more people are out walking around. Walking their dogs, so it's also a nice way, a nice way to make those two things converge. So now there's more people walking around. There'll also be more people to see your signs or your door if you decorate it. Um, the other place that we saw new need, which we're certainly not the only ones who saw this, most people have, is just concern for isolation. So because what we do in so much of our work day to day is around dialogue and building community, we also just wanted to have some translate that a little bit back to people's homes. And so we put out, just like on the lighter side of things, just icebreakers and team builders and
Is
dinner time dialogues.
is that on this page that
Yeah,
I could
that'll be
pull?
at the very bottom of that page. I think it's going to be the last part of that website. So folks can download those and try them out. Yeah, you can keep going down. There's the signs, there's the door challenge, and at the bottom, yeah, affirmations, icebreakers, community building questions. So we've been putting some of those out online. These are stressful days for many of us when we may be homeschooling all day and trying to work at home at the same time, or even just trying to figure out how we get our bills paid. And so we wanted to make sure that people had a little bit of support if they just needed some time to connect either with their own family in their own home in a different way, or online, or with neighbors, etc. So I've been doing some of these with my family, and some of you, if you follow us online, you may have seen me sharing that when I asked my son what's the single best day of the year, he responded, Taco Tuesday. So we've already been having some fun with them, and
That's great.
it's been it's been good to just kind of step out of the ordinary, and it kind of breaks us out of our stress, I guess, at the end of the day, just to
Yeah.
talk about something we normally wouldn't. So really just trying to make sure that like, we know we have expertise in community building. So how do we turn that into something that's going to specifically fit this need? And then my hope would be, and we're kind of working on how to do this maybe through some of the interfaith networks,
Mhm.
is how do we also make sure that we're combating um, isolation. So that would be to me like almost at the individual or the family level. But what are we doing kind of more broadly? Because
Yes.
we don't have that quality of experience right now where you're just like bumping into people in the store, or you're just not interacting with anyone you don't know right now, and it kind of like closes our experiences to this much more narrow focus. And I have this concern that it just leaves so much possibility for fear and suspicion to start creeping in. And when you have fear and suspicion, and then you have an experience that tells you like, oh, that fear was unfounded, that's such
Yeah.
a great part of living in a major area like Orange County. But you take away that opportunity, right? And you're left with your fear and suspicion and nothing to counter that when you're not having those experiences. So hopefully we can start engaging with some of these communities to not to reach into homes, but also across communities, making sure that that level of social tie is still being addressed. And then I
So
think
true.
we have to go then to the next level, which is really I don't know how much we can do this now, or if it's part of what we think about in our new normal as we move forward. But we're also now seeing these underlying disparities, or what for some people have been obvious disparities for so many years, are really unveiled in this crisis. So
Oh,
seeing
yes.
how different communities, particularly the Black community, is so deeply affected and so differently affected than their
Mhm.
peers. People of color are dying at much higher rates because of this. And so I think
Yeah.
we need to make sure while we do our best to address immediate need, that we don't lose sight of some of these long-term issues that they're spiking right now, because we're seeing the short-term effect of this long-term issue. So I just feel like we need to keep that also in our minds and not let that
Yes.
slip.
Oh, no, it's such a good point. I think some of us are in a we're in a safe space. We're in an environment where we're comfortable, and also still have our jobs, and so we're it's not a vacation, but it is a little bit easier to get by.
Mm-hmm.
And so that alone keeps us in our bubble, right? If
Mm-hmm.
we're not surrounded by other people's challenges. So I think it's a very good point. How do we get that out to others that, you may be okay, but there's others that are not okay. And that's going to affect us in the long term. Because you're right, even when we do start coming together in groups, are we going to shake hands? Are we going to embrace like we used to? There there are stigmas that are being created every day around this new normal. So I think that's a very good point. How then would you want, or how can nonprofits um, partner with you and OC Human? Like, what do you need then? You said you wanted to work with the interfaith communities, but you've got also nonprofits that I know you've worked with in the past. But what are some new ways that nonprofits need to know about how they can interact with you? You know, whether it's going to that website and using your tools, but what are some other ways that you hope to work with the community?
Sure. Yeah, so yeah, we would love anyone to participate in any of the campaigns and share those things with us. If you see things happening in the community that can be reported, I'm keep reminding people, even if it's something that you're seeing online hate certainly exists. Take a
Mhm.
screenshot, you can upload it on our website.
Okay.
But I would also like to offer to folks that if they need us, we're here.
Okay.
Sometimes, like if we can help you even with your own staff, like, hey, do you need a time and a space for your staff to gather online? Like, what can we lead for you? How can we bring people together? Um, and then, sorry, I'm being interrupted.
Oh, it
uh,
happens.
um, so let's
You were
see.
saying you were saying nonprofits can reach out to you, like if you need staff. You do, because you do staff training and staff professional development as well, correct?
Sure, and just community building. For some organizations, like I was thinking back to even recently after Orlando, the shooting in Orlando, we went into some of the community organizations really impacted by that and did healing circles for them to just let their staff process. So if you're experiencing that, we'd love to figure out how to help you even just like bring folks back together, talk
Okay.
about how you're doing and what your needs are. But really for us, I think beyond that, it's we just appreciate any time people are coming together and amplifying each other's work. I think one of the things all of us have struggled to do, but many have done successfully, is how can we use our mission and our expertise to address this and not get into mission drift, but still like pivot enough to be effective. The Boys and Girls Clubs are great examples right now of giving childcare to first responders. So I think there are lots of ways that we can each figure out how our expertise plays into this without saying like, oh, we're dropping our mission and now we're all
Right.
going to meet basic need, even though that would be obviously very tempting. I mean, I think even this week, Goodwill partnered with Second Harvest, right, to
Yes.
make sure that
Mhm.
they can do more. So I think that it's really, I mean, as much as I would love to just say, here's how you can help us, I think it's really like help us think about how we can all partner on things and how can we be effective in this moment is really important to me. And as actually as a fairly new CEO, I'm really enjoying learning from more seasoned folks that have maybe not been through this exact thing before, but are, able to think at that level and to really bring people together and think about this as like a landscape issue, not just our
Yes.
individual organizations.
Yeah, just I think it's important for everyone to hear what you just said in terms of just keep focusing on what you do best, and just get better and better at it, because eventually your mission, well, your mission's needed now, but eventually it'll be needed more so after basic needs are met and we do start to go back. Mental health is going to be huge, and all the things that you guys are doing with the community. And I like that you brought in how you work with other organizations staff, that you're almost like a consultant to organizations that are feeling those things internally, or there's been a shift in their client needs and their staff are not equipped with mediation or noticing, a hate crime, because they're just, in it so much. So I think that's important for nonprofits to know about how you operate as an external expert, right? A subject matter expert around these things. So
Hmm.
thank you
Hmm.
for mentioning that, because everyone just needs to know that that there are people addressing
Mhm.
certain things. It's just it's just finding out where they are. So that's the other reason why I thought it was important for you to come and talk, because in the group there's new nonprofits joining, there's new professionals coming, there's even volunteers. The more people know about the resources that exist, um, then new nonprofits, won't pop up.
Right. Yeah, yeah. I get the you mentioned mediation, and I did a poor job of talking about that, but I will say that we did move all of our ability to do mediation online as well.
Oh, great.
So that can, for us, that can mean almost any type of conflict that we've always done no or low cost mediation. So we've even been trying to we'll try to be putting out some workshops even just for families, parents, like, because I mean, I know we've enjoyed our togetherness, but there's such a thing as too much togetherness sometimes in
Yes,
our
true.
in this time when you really, aren't leaving the house much. So if we can be of service in that way too, we're happy to do that. We were very fortunate that we had just moved that capacity online like a month before this happened. So we were
Oh,
already
awesome.
like semi-equipped, and learned all the fantastic features of Zoom overnight, to be able
Great.
to put the whole agency there. But that is something that we're still doing, and we're still doing even some training around mediation online right now.
Oh, that's awesome. That's awesome. So then, share really quick, because I always love to hear about, you as a leader and your staff. Because I mean, people have just overnight, right? Everyone's had to adjust from not just staying home, but then like, what do we do at home? So, share a little bit about what are the wins that you've been seeing with your staff, and then how has your leadership style, kind of
Mhm.
morphed through all of this.
Sure. So I had kind of a fun moment probably 3 weeks ago where one of my board members said, "Well, what's everyone even doing when they're at home, knowing that the courts are closed and the schools are closed?"
Yeah.
And I laughed, probably inappropriately at that moment because I know that actually we moved so quickly to put all this stuff online, to come up with new campaigns, to decide which activities to put online, to start online workshops. Also, that actually the staff was telling me, "Can you could you ease up a little bit? Like we're so busy." Um, so which kind of leads me, I guess, to the change in leadership style. It became clear to me really quickly that I had to over communicate for my comfort level. I I am more introverted than I realized, I guess, because in this, with being at home, like, I mean, I can just like forget to talk to people because my introverted side just really ramps up. So reminding myself consistently, like, there's not really too much information right now for staff and for board was really important. Um, so the board started getting weekly, if not more often, updates. Some of the committees started to meet more, and then I just realized, even though our staff does actually meets every other week, typically we started meeting every week, and I just wanted to be able to see everyone as best as you can on Zoom and just connect. And so we've been doing always like something first just to connect when we get together. Like I said, we like to dialogue. So there's always a check-in question, a time to share, and then there's time for me to give as much information as I can about where we are with our finances. What am I preparing for the board? What questions does the board have? Give me updates on. We put everyone into like 4 working groups so they could start focusing on different areas like communicating online and hate crime, addressing client needs. So um, give me like updates from all those work groups because I need to also send that up to the board, because I needed the board to know that actually our staff was really important right now, and that I was putting them, keeping them on board as a priority until we didn't have a choice. And so far, we've been able to keep everyone on board
That's great to
as
hear.
we've moved through this. But yeah, so for me, it's been lots of over communication and lots of trying to say yes to things that make me uncomfortable, like doing this.
Yay!
I'm, I'm pretty chatty, but the live thing, it can make me a little uncomfortable. So just
Yeah,
knowing that it's important to do these things for the organization and for the communities that we serve. Um, this is not like the best example either, but I also did my first, Instagram story of, hey, here's our new website, come check it out,
awesome.
and so I go to bed some nights with like sort of like sick to my stomach, just knowing like, oh, it's on the internet and people are watching it. But I just decided to lean into that because that's what I'm
Good.
hoping our staff will do, right? We
Yes.
just need to make sure that we're connecting in new ways, and these are not our typical ways, but we're going to do them anyway. And we're just going to step out and try to be bold because this is a moment that needs probably a more bold response. I don't want anyone in our organization to feel like we now just do a wait and see, right? There are people that are like you've said, not working, not in comfort, not in privilege. And we need
Yeah.
to make sure that while we can keep working, that we see it as a responsibility to community to be proactive and as responsible, as responsive as possible.
That's great. That was so you pretty much segued into my last little piece. Is other words of wisdom. I mean, everything you said was probably perfect for everyone to hear. The whole leaning in, being bold, and not being afraid to say yes. I think that's really important. Anything else you've learned in the last month since you've been transitioning that you would want to give to nonprofit professionals, other leaders like yourselves? What other words of wisdom do you want to leave with people?
Gosh, I think the other thing that I hope if our staff were here that they would agree is we just had to know that we didn't know really how we were going to navigate this from internally in terms of our expectations of staff. We had to let people know that we understand that this is uncharted territory. Many people, like myself included, we have kids at home, we have a partner at home. I mean, even down to like my cat appearing in most videos, most days, like it's just chaos for so many of us.
Yeah.
But at the other end of the spectrum, we have people that work for us that live alone and don't have
Mhm.
family close by. So just trying to
True.
navigate that with a lot of grace and telling people like, hey, if you're that person that stays up all night working, you need to give yourself permission not to. Hey, if you're that person that only worked for a half hour today, you need to step up. But just giving like that much latitude and just being transparent that, we know this is going to be a challenge and we don't have one set of expectations for everyone right
Right.
now. But we do have a basic expectation that everyone's contributing
Yeah.
seemed to be a helpful way for us to move forward through that. Now, we have just been fortunate that everyone's been able to work remotely. So I realize that that's not true for everyone. And some positions in some organizations are basically like immediately, um, you know, don't exist essentially when
Yeah.
you have to work remotely. So I know that's not wisdom that works for everyone, but it's been really important to also hear back from staff because of the work that we do that's restorative. We try to say we do with and not to. So
Mhm.
doing with, even though we're certainly flawed in terms of how we do that, but for us that meant checking in with people a lot, one to one, so that
Mm. Yeah.
if you're having a challenge, you're not put in the position to express that necessarily in front of all your colleagues, but that you have opportunity to
Right.
make it known when you're not able to meet expectation or when expectations are too high.
Right.
So internally, I think our team leads have done a lot to just make sure that they're communicating with folks as best as they can and individualizing some of their plans
Yeah.
instead of trying to paint it with everyone with the same brush.
Yeah.
And then externally, I think it's actually a lot of the same, like keep um, keep connecting with as many people as you can. And I think it's no surprise, Victoria, that so many people have responded well to the group that you created, because um, you're looking for advice, you're looking for wisdom, and at least at the end of the day, you'll find out like, oh, everyone else doesn't know either.
Yeah,
Okay, that's fine. I'm
right.
okay.
The one
And
the one thing I learned, my background is counseling, and I got human services, and so that was actually the biggest thing that I learned in my program is in group therapy and in group counseling is sometimes people just need to know that they're not alone. It has
mhm,
nothing to do with your issue. It has nothing to do with how small or big you think it is. It's just that somebody else is feeling it. And I think
mhm,
a lot of people were there a couple weeks ago and the SBA loans were being pushed out and everyone's at home going, am I the only one that can't get a bank? Right. So
mhm,
yeah, I
mhm,
agree with you. It's about just knowing that I'm not the only one feeling this.
mhm. Sure, and sometimes when you're really struggling too, that there's not a magic answer, that you're
Yeah.
the only one who didn't have it, and you can really get yourself in that position to feel like, I bet everyone else knows this. I bet everyone else already has a bank. I bet they already knew how to do it.
Yeah.
And so that's been great. But I think again, even externally or internally, there's just no such thing as too much communication at this point in terms of our professional dealings. And then I
Mhm.
think online even, the consensus is that people want to know that other people are out there thinking about this and that they believe that we're going to be okay, that we will get
Yeah.
through this together. And hearing that, I think, goes a long way. So maybe
Yes.
it's not a coincidence, Victoria was raised by two psychologists. So
Oh, there you go. There you go. Well, somebody wants to give you a shout out and let you know that your Instagram stories have been inspiring them. So, see, good thing you
I'm
did
glad
it.
I did it. I'm glad I did.
Yay, you're out there. On this side, I can't tell who it is, but when you go into the group, you'll see who gave you that little shout out. But see, it
Okay.
was worth it. It was worth that night of no sleep.
Yay.
That's awesome. Well, thank you so much. This was great. So much that you do for the community pre and post COVID, and I know it's not going to end given everything that's been going on. So thank you for sharing about your no hate campaign, and everything that you're able to offer for nonprofits. It's hidden work, I find sometimes, because it's not always it's definitely not always see it. We see it, but we don't recognize that there are actually ways to combat it. And your organization is large and doing a lot of work in the schools that probably parents and the community don't realize, because you're a partner, right? You're a contracted
Mhm.
nonprofit going in, and so even you have a new audience, I would think, as you're getting out into the social media world, that
Yeah.
parents may not have they probably heard of building bridges, or they signed something, right, for their child to be a part of,
Mhm.
never really understanding that it was a nonprofit coming in and doing that work.
Yeah. Yeah.
So even you have a new audience to tell a story to. So I'm glad you're getting on Instagram.
Great. Thank you so much, Victoria. It was really nice to join you today. Appreciate it so much.
You're welcome. You're welcome. One more, someone else wanted to say Bloom Foundation posting stories and holding live stories too. So yes, thank you for doing so as well. So just
Oh, yay. And Bloom Foundation, I saw one of yours yesterday. Yay. I'm glad
yay.
you're doing that.
See?
That's
Yeah.
great.
So everyone's helping everyone. All right. Well, you have a great rest of the day. Thank you. And
You too.
we'll be making sure we share all of your stuff on the Facebook group and then also on the OC Charities page. So keep
Great.
posted. All right. Talk to you later.
Wonderful.
Thanks,
All right.
Allison.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye bye.